This is the Owens Recovery Science Podcast.
I didn't ask this, Ben. How are you doing, man?
I'm hanging in there. I just had an exciting weekend. You know, I didn't want you and Zach to be the only ones with like crazy stories on getting to a course. So
Zach still is, but yeah, I'm like 3 beers into it Friday night, and Ben's calling me, "Hey, I need a one-way rental car from Detroit or from Chicago to Detroit." Which is impossible, dude. I called every rental car company there is. So flight canceled in Chicago, get the rental car, but then he has to bring it back. And then what time did you get in last night? You got delayed again.
Yeah. So I was supposed to fly to Detroit on Friday. Snow sent me to Chicago, so they diverted us to Midway. You got me the rental car, and I drove from Midway to Madison Heights, north of Detroit. I got to my hotel at 5:30. The hotel computer system was down, so they couldn't get me a key card for the room, and the guy couldn't look at what rooms were available. So he had to go knock on doors to figure out if there was a room available on the first floor because the elevator was broken. And so
Lord.
I got into my room at 6 a.m. and set my alarm for 6:45 in the morning.
Yeah, I saw you text me.
What's the point?
I went to bed at like 10:30. I'm like, "Hey man, how'd it go?" And like 4:30 in the morning, I get made it.
Yeah, and I'm on Eastern time, so that was 5:30.
Wow.
And so
you know what the crazy thing is? That was that weekend 5 years ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Philadelphia. It was Philadelphia
Same
5
weekend?
years ago that weekend.
Oh, wow.
Yep. 100%.
So I go teach the course, and then go to bed. And I'll take that one step back. I get back from teaching the course. The power is out at the hotel. So they still couldn't give me a key card for my room.
Good heavens.
And so we get that straightened out. I get up, drive back to Midway the next morning, and check in. They couldn't get me on an earlier flight, so I'm waiting on my afternoon flight. The flight gets delayed to the point where I would miss my connection. So they switch me to a different flight, and they have me set up to go to Orlando. They get me to describe my bags so they can pull them.
Yeah.
And you can guess how that worked out.
Yeah.
I go through Orlando to get back. Of course, bags don't make it.
Yep.
So I'm there talking to them about how to get my bags back. And I got home at like 1 a.m. last night. So
that was what I was describing my bags in Michigan. I was like, black, hard. And they wanted me to describe the contents, and they sent me the report, and the lady said it was full of turned kits, TURN kits.
Yeah.
Jesus, man. All right, so you're gonna suck ass today. You might as well just tap out of this one. Yeah, but Zach driving in the snow from Atlanta to Philly that time when his flight was canceled was amazing, because I was driving to Houston and you were talking to Jen, and Jen's like, people are canceling in Philadelphia that they can't make it to the course because of the snow, and she's like, Zach's flight's canceled, and he said he's just gonna get a rental car with some other dude and drive. I'm like going through the scenarios, like the legal ramifications. And Zach guys like, okay, let me think about this. How is it? It's a good course, right? It's been Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Man, that was.
Yeah, I had 5 people from Michigan cancel because of the snow, and that was an interesting drive. For sure.
Your wings, baby.
Was it snowing while you were driving?
Yes, and
that's the worst. That's so scary.
I passed about 25 abandoned vehicles that were off in a ditch.
Oh my word.
And I was in this little Toyota RAV4, and
I was trying. When they were asking rental cars, I was like, "What's the smallest economy you have? I want to get on a smart car."
Preferably with bald tires.
I put that thing to the test. It was my little My adrenaline by the time I got there was so high. I am surprised that I think I did fall asleep for like 20 minutes. So I'm glad I got that.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah. Hey, I made it. It was,
Huh.
I can apparently teach a course on no sleep. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing for the people that took the course.
I've done it on no sleep, but it's because I've been out all night with people at the place. University of Nebraska. But luckily, everyone in the course was out with me, so we were all good. All right. Well, cool, man. So we are going to do just a recap of combined sections CSM. So if folks listening outside the US or aren't physical therapists, don't know what CSM is, it's our biggest, I think it's bigger than annual conference, our scientific conference for physical therapy, APTA, the combined sections. So the sections are like ortho, sports, neuro, etc. And so I was stoked, supposed to be there. Ben got us a houseboat in the marina to stay on. I shelled out some big bucks for this party with a purpose that was supposedly going to have this amazing open bar, and my freaking carrier monkey daughter gives me COVID on Thursday. So I missed the whole dang CSM. So I'm going to be awesome recapping CSM for you guys, because I basically was in my shorts in my house the entire time doing nothing, ordering Uber Eats. But I had a couple talks that I had to record and send in, which was a pain in the ass. And people were sending me pictures of their bourbons from the party that we paid for their damn tickets, $250 a piece. Assholes. But anyways, I was trying to reflect. So I don't remember when my first BFR CSM talk was. I think it was the first BFR talk at CSM. And it was like rolled into basically like a new technology we're trying out in the DoD. So it was with exoskeletons and robotics and things like that. And we also discussed blood flow restriction. So I think that was the first one.
I think the first time Ben and I went was 2016.
Yep.
Okay.
And that was San Antonio,
before
right?
that, probably. Yeah, that was San Antonio.
Yeah, it was probably like 13, 14, something like that. Okay. It was in Vegas, I think. Because the main thing I remember is we get done, there's all the people waiting to ask you questions, mostly students. And I'm looking at the back, and there's these two people standing there, and they're in these brown looking military uniforms. They got rank on it. The main person's got the butter bars, she's a captain. And so they come up, and I said, they were solid brown. And I said, wow, I didn't know UPS had a military system.
Oh no! I feel like I know who these people were. Yeah, this is even better.
And they didn't laugh, and I was just like, huh, all right. So I was like, anyways, I didn't recognize your uniform. Like, yeah, we're with the FDA.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought it was.
And I was like, am I in trouble here? Like, what's going on? And they said, we heard you guys in the DoD were doing this blood flow restriction stuff. And so we're trying to understand exactly what it is, because now you're presenting it, out to everyone. And, this is a medical device type of thing. Tell us exactly what you're doing, yada, yada. So that was my first encounter, first talk ever on BFR. And then the FDA already hit me up wondering what it was, and never heard anything from them again on anything. I still have their contact because they wanted to do like a follow-up, but yeah, so that was, so in case people didn't know, FDA are uniformed military type people. I
didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know
it's interesting.
Uniform. We got to back up though, because when you said the butter bars, Zach about lost it, and I don't understand that reference at all. So for us, like lay people, what does that mean?
So on your officer side, a butter bar is like basically in the Marine Corps, we called them boots on the enlisted side. So those are like the new people. So these are like fresh out of college, have no experience whatsoever, typically aren't thought of with the highest regard. Kind of, you could call them wet behind the ears. Yeah. But
and so the captains, basically it's two little bars.
So captains are two little bars. And then so in the Navy, it's like a Lieutenant JG. is like the 01. The Marine Corps is a lieutenant, but it's a different grade. But either way, So think of them, Kyle, the equivalent that I would get. Johnny, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it's like the new grad. They have a lot of education behind them, but they don't really have any practical experience. No so context. They rely very much so and very heavily on their like research or school type education versus, and then like the practical stuff comes in a little bit later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're having, the first sergeant under him is actually telling them what to do and how to do it right.
That's exactly it. Yeah. The senior enlisted basically run the show.
Yeah. So anyways, but back to it, 2013-ish, one BFR talk. Kyle, how many talks on BFR and posters were there this CSM?
There were 8 different presentations. So in person, somebody getting up speaking. And then there were 30 some odd posters at CSM this year.
Wow.
A big change for sure.
Yeah.
Even over last year, there weren't that many.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, cool. and I think what's crazy is it was kind of ortho, DOD or tactical type stuff. And now, a lot of this was dominated by neuro and, ICU, heart failure, stuff like that. So I didn't get to meet with them, but you guys want to go into the neuro talk and your conversations with the neuro folks?
Yeah, we can do that. And we probably will have them on the podcast too. Okay. But when we were kind of looking into this, we noticed that the 2 neuro talks that were happening at CSM were on the same day at the same time, which sucked. So one was Dr. Maniago at CU Anschutz, who's doing work in multiple sclerosis, has a VA grant. They're examining that. And then the other was a group of physical therapists in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that one works for Parkview Hospital System. I think it's Parkview Hospital System. I know it's Parkview. I just don't know what the rest of the name is. They have about 7 different facilities there around the Fort Wayne area. And then 2 of the professors from Trine University there in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And so they were talking about basically, they gave kind of a simple kind of rundown of BFR, what it is. Then another broke down the case studies that have been done on BFR. And then the clinician of the group broke down a number of different cases that she's worked with in the clinic using BFR, everything from stroke to spinal cord injury to, there's the one case that I'm forgetting. It was a young girl. Transverse myelitis.
Yeah.
So doing a lot of cool things. So anyway, we put together a dinner with them. So Ben and I got to go to that because Zach, he doesn't really show up to CSM until kind of like when the conference starts, sort of thing.
Hey, at least
after all the hard work of setting up the booth and everything has been done.
Pretty certain
and conveniently leaves before any of the takedown has to start happening.
I was collaborating
it's weird. He goes, "It's the earliest I could get, the latest I could get flight, Kyle." And I'm like, "Zach, there's Sunday." And it's just kind of our conversation stopped there. So anyway, Ben and I had a good dinner with them, and just kind of, we wanted to get people together, kind of just to talk shop and see, swap stories, and you just kind of never know what comes out of that. And I realized I've just been talking way too long. And Ben, why don't you chime in and talk about our dinner?
Or at least that case with the young lady. That sounded pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, I thought the dinner, just because I feel like we got to have a lot more of a conversation about what they were doing as opposed to what they, presented in their talk, and just overall the experience that they had, and, the positive results that they've seen. Obviously it's interesting with these cases because, of course, you don't have like a randomized control to compare to as far as the results, but it's, seeing what they're doing and, how broadly they're applying it, and kind of adopted it because they were using it so heavily on the orthopedic side of the house. And so, yeah, I mean, they were using it a lot with their gait training and using it with robotic assisted walking, which of course I knew nothing about the CPGs for neuro populations. And so they went over the need for high intensity walking and how they actually have a recommendation to not use robotic assisted gait because it's not intense enough. And then, they're like, well, yeah, I kind of need the robotic assisted walking so people can actually do some walking that lasts long enough, but using BFR to make it hard enough might be the way to kind of bridge that gap. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a world that I've never worked in. So it was interesting to see what they were doing, and just the fact that everyone tolerated it well. They, used 80% occlusion and did 8 minutes of inflation just because that's what the unit would default to. So, kind of interesting that was the approach that they took, because it's probably different than what most people are doing out there. But it seemed to work really well. I mean, it was something that they've had some really good effects from. So, yeah, the transverse myelitis case was really interesting as well, just because it's kind of been the double no-fly zone of, it was, a young kid and, neuro-based pathology. So I want to say that the case was on a 9-year-old, and they basically went from almost, no control, voluntary control of muscle that was noticeable, to being able to move a limb in a somewhat gravity eliminated position. So seeing a pretty significant return of muscle function in a pretty short period of time. And so that's just a super cool thing to see, and opens up a lot of potential for what kind of populations folks are going to use this on. I think that was the biggest thing on that talk, and having dinner with them, is just getting that information out there to break down some of that fear avoidance that we have in these neuro-based populations.
Yeah. I mean, it's coming more and more like they need to be doing, like you said, high intensity stuff. You see that with the Parkinson's, stuff coming out Northwestern, but it's like, how do you get those people to do that? So this is a beautiful bridge.
Yeah, that was the, when I did the course at Kennedy Krieger in Baltimore, that was the one thing that I said to him. I'm like, I mean, this was 5 years ago. I said, like, I don't really know what you guys are going to do. But, here, this is kind of what it is. This is research, whatever. And I'm like, you're dealing with spinal cord injury people. Like, I just don't know. And I remember the lady saying, like, Zach, you have no idea what literally just giving people conditioning will do for them, and in terms of increasing their function. It basically was the premise of, look, like, we're not talking about reversing a spinal cord injury or things like that. We're literally just talking about increasing their capacity to do work. And the way that we're doing it now is with HIIT training. We have people come in here and they just basically run through like modified CrossFit style workouts. And that was the deal. The one thing, I forget the exact pathology of the individual in one of the cases. It was a stroke or something, but they had basically ran through like their traditional protocol, like what they would do with them, and they just weren't making progress. And then they turned around and started doing BFR. I want to say it was around November, and then they gave like an update on what happened, where the person was at in June. And I want to say, like, walk distance during a 6-minute walk test and whatnot doubled, Berg balance scale, significant increases. I'm talking like, I hate to give the number. I want to say it was like a 20-point increase on the Berg. Like, it's just these phenomenal changes that you got within 8 months. And it's almost, I think, like how you look at it with how it got adopted in the orthopedic side of things. The push initially wasn't for like post-ops and whatnot. It was for these people that just have these chronic issues that just aren't getting better with what we're traditionally doing. And so, well, let's just try it with these folks. And do we get a result, and do we have an impact? And so it looks like, that was one of the things that they were basically rolling out in some of the cases that they were using it with, was these individuals, they're chronically out, just aren't getting better. And it's almost, what do we have to lose at this point?
Yeah. That's what Chanda said, Chanda plan with all the SCI folks up there.
Yeah.
Just that conditioning they're getting was like just so liberating, and actually seeing some outcomes from it's even double liberating. That's pretty sweet. Well, that kind of rolls into Mark's, unless you guys have something else on that one.
No.
But Mark Managgio's talk, I always screw up his last name. Maniago. And we did a podcast with Mark a while back. We worked pretty closely with him. He's creating a nice little niche here, but looking at it with, not just a bunch of different neural populations, but specifically with the MS. And so his talk won best platform talk for, I forgot what it was, like degenerative disease. No, it won. Best.
Nice.
Yeah, best in show, man. So good for him. And he's got his VA grant to study it bigger, but he's already got good amount of pilot data. I think this one, I was on the abstract. I think it was 15 subjects that they were able to finally get in this. It had pretty severe MS, the disability scale. I don't really know that scale, but it's between a 6 and a 7. So
it's pretty huge. So what that translates to is those folks were literally they're using an assisted device to ambulate on the verge. I think 7 to 7.5 is. That's what I was going to say. 7.5 is wheelchair bound.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So what he does, it's twice a week for 8 weeks is his protocol. He's doing leg press, calf press, hip abduction. I can't remember. He's doing both limbs. I don't know if he's doing it simultaneous or alternating. In that population, I'd almost think it's alternating just because it's pretty hard, but we can always clarify that with him. But overall, they had medium to large effect sizes for increasing knee extension strength. Their 30-second sit to stands, their Berg balance, and the modified fatigue impact scale. So to see those after 8 weeks of moderate to large effect size and that severe disability is pretty cool. They didn't see any change significantly for plantar flexor strength, the MS walk scale, or the 25-foot timed walk. But we do have the other paper where they walked with BFR and MS and did increase those factors. So I just wonder on those, not hitting those 2 walk kind of milestones, if it was because he was primarily doing strength-based exercises, and if you worked in a walk protocol, could you see those?
It was less severe MS too in that walk study. That Lombardi study, less severe also.
I remember talking. I asked him specifically about that, and I think what he said was basically they were a lot more severe. And like Kyle and I were saying, I mean, when you get to that EDSS of like around a 7 to a 7.5, they're wheelchair bound. So that'll drastically sway your results. And when you start rolling out those folks, you may not have enough of a sample then to really kind of draw conclusions from the remainder that can walk. So
robot assisted with BFR, baby. I mean, he needs to get him some robot assisted stuff up there.
Dr. Maniago was rather impressed with the access to equipment that Parkview had. He was like, man, I'm at Colorado. We don't even have a robot assisted gate. That's awesome,
We had him at the CFI.
He's with the VA. He's with the VA. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. He's in Colorado too, though.
Yeah.
VA is just new. Like he's only with the VA for like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
But that protocol would be interesting if 8 weeks you can get some of those people's strength up enough that they could potentially walk. And then you transition from, okay, you've done your strength training. Now we're going to move into the walking protocol. And that might be pretty sweet. So it'd be nice to see.
The exercise though, Johnny, because you just said leg press, but it's that little slider thing, right? That's on the ground. The
mini shuttle. Yeah.
Mini shuttle.
Yeah. And then I forget, how are they doing hip abduction? I know he told us, but
supine. It was a lot of kind of gravity minimized, and then using a band for the resistance for those folks.
Yeah. And the calf press is on that little mini shuttle as well, I think, right? Yeah. And that's probably just maybe not enough load or ability to do that right. So good stuff for him, though. It's interesting. He's going to have more and more things coming out. What else? Did you guys get to go to any talks? Or were you working the whole time?
We got a lot of folks at the booth for sure. I mean, we all went to that neuro talk on the first day. Like we got to that one. And then I broke off and I went and I talked to my buddy Matt Stump, who's at Anderson University. We loaned them a device so that they could finish out an Achilles repair case. So they had a PT student who was, at the time they started using BFR with him, he had been discharged. He had just been discharged from PT and had terrible plantar flexor strength, terrible plantar flexor girth.
Perfect time to discharge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an all too common story, unfortunately. And so the guy is like a former, I want to say, collegiate basketball player and then also an athletic trainer. So has some background, knows that his functional level is like well below where it really kind of should be, even for him to be back to kind of quote unquote prior level function, as you might see a PT document. So, and he was having a hard time doing any kind of just calf exercise in general. So they started him on BFR. I think they got about 8 weeks under their belt, and then he had to go on rotation. So we loaned them a device so that he could keep up with that rehab. Matt I feel like Matt, my buddy, kind of spearheaded that whole thing. So they gathered some data on him, kind of prior to starting. So they captured, I want to say, some force plate data. They got some ultrasound data on, I think, tendon and muscle. And then I forget, maybe like some walking data or something like that. So, long story short, guy did really well. He's back to playing basketball now. I think at this point he's probably about a year and a half out from the surgery, but the BFR seemed to kind of be the thing that got him moving in the right direction, if you will. So that was cool.
Sounds like Kevin Durant, baby. Very similar story. Year and a half as well. Yeah. Luckily, it was COVID hit, so no one noticed. But yeah. That
was cool. And then Mike Body and Andrea. Oh, I forget her last name. They had their poster on total knee combined with
home use.
Yeah, BFR, neuromuscular stem, home use. So basically found it was feasible, didn't find that they changed much in terms of functional outcomes and muscle performance, but that people were able to put the device on, they were able to operate it, that kind of thing. And talking to them, they kind of felt like they probably just in many ways didn't quite get to a therapeutic dose with the neuromuscular stem and BFR. It probably just wasn't intense enough for long enough, for frequent enough, or whatever you want to do. So I think just kind of highlights, you can't just throw BFR at something, for one, which is, certainly a mantra that we have repeated over and over and over and over again, and should kind of continue to be repeated. But once we kind of figure out the programming, that would be, there's an avenue there potentially.
Didn't they compared that to historical data, right?
Yeah, they compared to historical data, and they just found that their cohort wasn't any different, really.
Well, the BFR group only did, it was half the time, if I remember right.
They started around week 4 and went to week 8 or 12. I forget.
I thought it was 12. And then the other folks they were comparing out to, they had double the visits or something.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look specifically.
Yeah, I want to say I remember that, because I remember making that when we talked with them. When you look at their data, I want to say that was the thing.
Yeah,
because I remember Johnny making a joke that the BFR group got the same results in half the time. I want to say that's what
that was good.
when you looked at the results were pretty much the exact same. There was no difference between historical data and the BFR group. But then when you look at either the duration or number of visits, I want to say it was like half. I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah,
that can make sense. So, they're giving out the units and having to kind of limit the amount of time these people could have them at their house and stuff like that. But they crossed the first hurdle, which is feasibility. And, I remember when they were first like, we're going to give these to post-op total knee patients to do at home. We're like, no, you're not. But it worked and everyone did fine. Some of them just freaking hated it and some of them liked it as to be expected. But they, as far as we could tell, they were doing it and they checked them to make sure they were doing it right. So
yeah,
cool. Now we just got to dial in the dosage. Sounds like
I think so. That's the biggest thing. And I mean, it's okay if it's like not a thing too, but yeah, definitely need to figure out the dosage so that we're kind of apples to apples kind of comparing things. So there was some really funny thing that happened. And I think we kind of all experienced this to a degree at CSM. I actually like tweeted something similar about it yesterday or the other day. But as we're standing there, I was talking, Nick Rolnick was there and he and Mike were talking and I was talking to Andrea and then I was kind of talking to Nick and Mike and this big dude with like a loud kind of authoritative voice comes up behind us, random guy, no clue who this dude is. And then it goes, neuromuscular stem at week 4, I couldn't tolerate that. I'm like, it's just so random. I'm like, what in the world? And just rude, and Mike being like the just professional and champ that he is and
the silver fox,
just was like totally handled it, cool, calm, and collected, and was like, well, we've kind of done this a decent amount, adding neuromuscular stem to BFR. It's not like our first rodeo, and just really kind of settled the guy down. But the guy was still like fascinatingly unconvinced. And I know this happened to Ben and Zach, but I had so many people. These are like physical therapists or physical therapy students that are going to have to interact in an interpersonal manner all the time when they're doing their job clinically. And they just walk up and immediately start talking to you or asking you a question, and oftentimes not very nice. And I just have to go, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. I'm Kyle. Like, just freaking introduce yourself.
You're sitting there talking to someone else and they come right in the middle. Yeah.
I'm not an AI controlled freaking app. I'm actually a human being. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if that's a trend. It just made me kind of ponder, like, what are we teaching people?
Oh, here comes at least Kyle's 2 of the people that did millennial this rant. Here comes
no, I'm not. Definitely not. Because at least 2 of the people that did this, at least 2 of the people that did this were professors in PT school.
Well, man,
full boat.
That's a boomer thing.
Like, what the hell is going on? Like,
well, I guess on the same kind of note, got some kind of update that Alex Franz's post-op total joint trial is looking like it's really going in a positive direction. So he's starting them like on IPC the day after their surgery, and just to kind of get them ready for it, and then combining that with STEM, and I guess in their initial kind of analysis, it's already looking like there's some good changes compared to the control group. So
are they doing IPC? I thought they were doing just like 80% in quad contractions or something.
It sounds like right off the bat they're just kind of IPC in it, and then they're moving into like a quad contraction with STEM from what I was told. So I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, doing it right in that post-op window might be a way we're going to really start to tackle this.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, that'd be cool. That'd be nice to have something published like that, just if nothing else, to address tourniquet safety timeframe after that kind of surgery. That's always been a question that we get. So
I think he's going to nail that with all his stuff that he's doing. He's really churning it out early on those people. So hopefully we can get him over to CSM. Maybe, I don't know if he'll be ready next year, but in 2 years with all his data.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be here actually next year. That might be awesome. Yeah. Yeah, but he'll have data.
Yeah. I mean, he said on the podcast that they actually like got all the orthopedic surgeons to sit down in a room and talk about it and go, okay, like what are we specifically concerned about? Because most of the conversations that we as clinicians have with the physicians is just like, very quick and to the point, and like there's not really a deep understanding of what we're doing discussed, and at least it sounded like they kind of got them all in a room and were like, okay, early on, what are we really concerned about? And to a T, they were like, I can't name a thing. I mean, we hear all the time, oh, we're worried about the incision, or oh, we worried we don't know it's safe. It's like, that's a cop out, man. Like specifically, what are you worried about? What about a few minutes of occlusion or restriction is problematic? What is it physiologically manipulating that you consider to be problematic? And when they did that, nobody could put their finger on anything.
Well, and he threw down if you're nervous about the incision, then you need to work on your incisions.
Yeah.
So it helps when you're the orthopedic surgeon who's in there in that room, just doing the study as well. So,
right.
Well, and that starting early, I guess, kind of brings us into the Dr. Cahalan, Magno, and Brady Anderson's and my talk, which I did recorded. I heard my jokes, just still crushed it. At the very end on my talk, I was like, thank you for your time. And I said, I also was supposed to remind you guys that Larry Cahalan said first rounds on him tonight. So you guys all enjoy it. So he said he had to get up after my talk and say, Johnny's joking. I'm not. I get everyone treats to but they broke down. So we have a paper that came out, I think a few weeks ago, basically on remote ischemic preconditioning with people who have lung transplants or lung surgeries. And surprisingly, there are papers out there that have looked at that, as well as a hypothesis of could this help with COVID. And this paper was done like 2 years ago when COVID was still kind of a thing, even though apparently it's still a thing because it keeps you from going to CSM. But it was pretty interesting. So they wanted to see, could you do RIPC and improve pulmonary gas exchange in these people that have these big lung surgeries? So the inclusion criteria was that had to be adults with some sort of lung disease that required surgery. They had to have a randomization of either they got RIPC or they got nothing. And they also had to measure baseline and post pulmonary gas exchange, inflammatory markers, and oxidative stress markers. So there was 48 studies, only 4 met inclusion criteria, but it was still almost 400 subjects, like 370 subjects in that meta-analysis. One study had a lot. I think it was like 130 in just one study alone. But basically, the inflammatory markers, oxidative stress, and pretty much most of the pulmonary targets they were looking at, if you look at the forest plots, almost all of it was positive for remote ischemic preconditioning having a significant effect. And so basically this was done right before surgeries, or once anesthesia's in, they would just do it. I think 2 of them did it on the arm, 2 of them did it on a leg, so just unilateral, the typical 3 rounds, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. And very interested in that second window effect. That seems like where for this population there's a lot of action that's happening. So they did a pretty good job from the slides they sent me of breaking down, that first window, you get all this ion exchange and, this kind of hypoxia, and that's that 24 to 72 hour window. You had an increase in potential endothelial function, you had decreased oxidative stress markers, you had an increase in fibrinolysis, decrease in inflammatory markers, and increase in gene expression, things like heat shock proteins and HIF1A and things like that. So if you can get this on these people, you've got 2 to 3 days afterwards that you might be kind of getting this sort of protective effect. And so that was basically what they did find. And then Brady's talk was pretty cool because he's the guy boots on the ground. So Brady Anderson, he's professor at University of Miami. He also works in the Jackson Hospital or something like that. And he is in the ICU with these lung patients, post-op lung surgeries, actually doing it. So he had some badass videos of like, these people in the ICU beds just doing either RIPC or stem with it, or laying on their back doing like a recumbent bike with it on. You could tell they are some pretty sick looking individuals. Like, man, I would be so nervous putting on them, and he's just cranking away, man, doing E-stem leg extensions with it all. And he said, at his concluding slides is he had multiple of his subjects saying they were sad or kind of upset when he was saying they were going to have to discharge doing BFR and move on to something else, that they really seemed to think that helped it. He also said some of them did not like it at all, as you would also expect. But he was also measuring things like RPE, blood pressure, and heart rate. It was pretty interesting. The kind of rise in your heart rate and blood pressure in these individuals really kind of followed this real linear, interesting RPE type scale in a couple of them. So you would see it went up about 10 millimeters of mercury on their heart rate. 10 beats per minute on their heart rate. They're like, it's around a 4 or 5. Once they start to get up to like 20, it's all of a sudden like I'm at like an 8 type thing. So that RPE scale, I think, is a really helpful tool, even when you're looking at something just like hemodynamic responses in these individuals. So pretty cool. And similar to what you're saying with Alec Franz, tell me why you shouldn't do it. He said when they were first looking at why they shouldn't do it in these patients, he threw out that they have these blood pressure cuffs on that are inflating and deflating all day on these folks. And so, what's the big deal if I inflate it and hold it on for a little bit longer to hopefully get a therapeutic dose? And so was able to get the green light. So that's pretty cool. And then the whole into COVID, obviously COVID, there's a lot of lung-based aspects. So if you're improving those pulmonary markers in COVID patients, that's big. And Cahalan went into the whole ACE2 potential to be upregulated, which is a good thing to have, because that's what COVID attacks, and BFR has been shown, at least in one pretty good paper, that it increases ACE2, as well as the angiogenic effect could be really huge in these individuals. So interesting stuff. And Cahalan is trying to get some grants to study this deeper. Yeah, you guys missed that talk too. So you missed some of my amazing virtual jokes.
Were they jokes we haven't heard?
Yeah, dude.
He's got fresh content.
What?
Actually, they probably were.
Did Larry present on any stuff in BFR with heart failure? I mean, I know he's been
a poster
on that.
Poster.
Okay.
Yeah. So that paper's out too. So
right.
yeah, I'm on that one. It came out in Frontiers in Physiology. So if you BFR and the heart failure, heart disease, and the muscle hypothesis, it's in Frontiers in Physiology. So it's open access. You can just look that up. Dr. Cahalan or Johnny Owen, you can pull it up and get it for free. And that meta-analysis, yeah, basically it was smaller. I think there was only like 150 subjects that have done BFR with those type of conditions. But again, everything that you were looking for seemed to move the right way, and strength improved, as well as some left ventricular function and things like that. And the hypothesis, we've done a podcast with Cahalan, maybe twice now, I can't remember. But I think he's gone into that muscle hypothesis, basically, that the heart is trying to get blood out to the muscle, left ventricular functions down in these heart failure patients. And so you're not getting blood out there, and then you start to go into atrophy, and then you have less ability to get blood moving, and it's just this kind of vicious cycle. So just adding muscle could be beneficial just for kind of heart function. It kind of disperses it. But then the big thing that he's always talked about is the reduced stroke volume. It kind of sucks the fluid off that left ventricle, and it gives the heart a beating, no pun intended, but I don't even know, was that a pun? Beating chance. Gives it a chance to work. And so that and the increased respiration, he thinks, are three just kind of really key factors where BFR could help these kind of patients. And in his pilot data, the ones with the worst ejection fractions seem to be doing better on his whatever he's measuring for his heart markers. Yeah, they're pretty cool. All right, so let's talk about the party. What was the best bourbon?
can we back up first?
No.
I'd like to.
Zach would like to interject.
I would like to talk about some of the things at the houseboat.
Okay.
Specifically, Kyle running the gate to get into the parking lot Thursday.
Oh, well.
And I started to freak out because the arm's coming down, it's going to hit the truck. And then don't think much more about it. We go to the houseboat and we're going to go get something to eat. And we're stranded in the parking lot because we didn't use the key card to get into the parking lot.
Scan
we can't get out.
Scan in, so we can't scan out.
There was specific guidance to say, make sure you scan in every time and scan out every time. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
that specific guidance was not given to yours truly, the individual that would actually be driving the vehicle.
Either way,
might be true. I don't know.
Well, I think then we can talk about the events of Friday leading up to the party. That shifted our plans going into the party.
The Technopalooza.
Technopalooza for sure. Because so Ben and I are at the booth and we look around and it's like, where's Kyle at? No idea where Kyle went. And Kyle just disappeared. So then Kyle comes back and he goes, hey, so I guess we got to go to this thing tonight called Technopalooza. And I'm like, what's Technopalooza? He goes, dude, I don't know. I was just over there and this guy asked us specifically if we're going to be at Technopalooza. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess we'll be there. And so then
but hang on. So you got to understand how this happened. This is an important part of this puzzle. Zach's not giving. So the reason I was gone is I was going over to the Academy of Innovation and Leadership to get all the wristbands that we had to have in order to get into the party. And one of the people running the party introduces me to the president of the Academy of Innovation and Leadership. And he comes over, he's a bit of a close talker, and he's very intent with his communication, and he's very strong with the eye contact. And he's like, are you coming to the Technopalooza? And I'm like, well, I don't know, what is that? And he's good beforehand, and people show their technology, and so I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, we can come. I can bring a device. That'd be no problem. And it's like, oh, awesome. So glad to have you. So then,
then we leave CSM for the day. We're at the dock. And Ben and I are like, man, I don't really know if I want to be there from 6:30 until 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, yeah, I know.
Same page, by the way. Same page.
And then, so Ben's like, man, Kyle, are you sure we need to be doing this? And Kyle's like, look, man, the guy asked us specifically if we're coming to Technopalooza. And I told him, I told him we would. Like, I don't necessarily want to go either, guys, but you know what? We're going to go.
Did not want to go.
So we're like, all right. So we're at the dock. Now, mind you, this is probably close to 5 o'clock at night by the time we get back to the boat. And instead of going and having a nice meal before this party for a purpose, we got to go to Five Guys because there's nothing else we can do to eat fast to get to Technopalooza. So we go to Five Guys, and then we leave. We go to Kyle drops us off like an Uber driver, and I'm walking in with what looks like the nuclear football. It's like the big Pelican case for the unit. And so it's like they got, and so Party for a Purpose was at the Children's Museum. So there's a big line out front, and they got bouncers and security, making sure no one's going in early. So we walk up, Ben and I do, and guy goes, what can I do for you? And he's like, hey, we're here for Technopalooza. We're supposed to be we're
kind of a big deal. We're
displaying this device right here, technology, whatever. Guy goes, oh, okay. He goes, all right, just follow me in. So he ushers us in, and then we go over to this table. The guy goes, who are you guys with? And we're like, we're with ORS, or Owens Recovery Science. We're here to for the event. And the guy's looking, flipping through the pages. It's never a good thing when they don't even recognize who you are. So he's like, guys, I don't see you on the list. And we're like, no, like double check again. Like, cause dude, our guy told us that we needed to be here for this. So he's like, God, he's like, what is it again? And we're like, Owens Recovery Science. He goes, guys, he's like, I don't see it. Who told you to come here? And we're like, well, Kyle did. The other
Close talker guy.
And then he goes, well, who did Kyle talk to? And so Ben's calling up Kyle. This is the best part. Kyle, who did you talk to? I don't know. The guy just asked us if we're coming, and I told him, yeah, we would come.
He's the guy, you know,
yeah,
like
he's the guy.
He's the guy.
He's the president.
Mind you, when we're at Five Guys, I said, Kyle, what are we supposed to do tonight? Like, what are we going to be doing? He goes, I don't know, Z. He goes, I mean, probably playing a ball pit. I don't know. And I'm like, okay, dude, it's a children's museum. It's not a children's playground. Okay. It's not they don't have ball pits. And so anyway, and so we call Kyle back and we're like, dude, like, we're not supposed to be here right now. And he goes, what do you mean? We're like, dude, they don't have a space for us. So we take the nuclear football back out to the truck and then we go back in and Kyle goes, who did you talk to? I said, I talked to Joe Burrows over there. And he goes, that's not who I talked to. And I said, well, dude, the guy that you talked to doesn't have a role with what's going on right now. I said,
just some dude wandering around.
Yeah, I said,
messing with people.
That guy,
hey, dude, Technopalooza.
Joe Burrows over there. He's the guy with the list that basically says, yeah, you're supposed to be here. And so that was the start of the night.
So this is basically like your college relived.
And for the record,
get into any of the cool clubs.
For the record, I talked to that gentleman again later that night. I didn't tell him what happened because I'm like, there was clearly some sort of misunderstanding. But he was the president of the Academy for Innovation and Leadership, the people hosting that thing. So I think he was just asking Joe Burrow was, but
Joe Burrows was the guy with the sheet. Yeah, I think that guy was just wondering if you're going to show up to see what the vendors had to show at Technopalooza.
Yeah. It may have been. Maybe I completely misunderstood, but
yeah. I mean, anyway. I think
we had a good time at the party, though. Damn it.
Yeah, there was a cool speakeasy and some good bourbons and tequilas to be had. I think the better part of that night, though, is how it ended. Kyle, do you want to tell people about the
Can we talk about the dang party, Joe? Okay. Apparently in San Diego, public parking lots actually close. Like they shut the gate and they do not allow you in. So
unless you have your little ticket and then you can prepay to leave. Yeah, and then the gate opens up.
I don't think it would have opened. I think
I don't think it was going to let us.
I think it was locked.
Anyway, so that happened. Yeah, the truck got locked and we had to Uber back to the houseboat. And
Jesus. So do I have to be at all these things from now on?
So I got up the next morning, went and got the truck, came back and picked these jackals up and took them. And we were everywhere that we needed to be when we needed to be, other than we didn't necessarily need to be at Technopalooza.
Yeah.
Noted.
But the party was good.
Ben
had, what bourbon did you have, Ben? You liked it.
I had
that was Johnny's question that kicked off all of this.
I had a Mileman Green, local Blanco, Texas. And then I did the Heaven Hill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bottled and bond.
Yeah. Corbin was on the Heaven Hill. He had been looking for that. I had the Willet. I forget what year it was. It was good. It was tasty.
That's some good stuff, though, man.
They had in the speakeasy they had like kind of like some higher end bourbons and tequilas and whatnot. So that was
cool. That party was a success too. So it's Party with a Purpose. We sponsored it along with like ATI and I forgot 2 other companies, and they raised $105,000. For charities, which is pretty sweet. Jimmy McKay, our friend with PT Pinecast and APTA Geriatrics. So I suspect this will be happening again. So that was cool. And also we supported the Worthington Fellowship. So we gave one lucky PT student a scholarship. So cool. That seemed good. Ben got to meet our student. Seemed like a nice guy.
Yeah.
What happens if you don't like the student? We didn't even get to meet him. What if he was just a jerk off? Did we have pulled our money and given to someone else?
I don't know. Good question.
I think we should be able to check it out.
We should text Kathy.
Carol Joe. Yeah.
Carol Joe. Yeah.
Carol Joe.
Yeah. Well, it was cool. I mean, I got to have a little short conversation with him prior to it, since Johnny wasn't able to make it in time, I got to go do the photo shoot for handing off the check. So
Did you have a big check?
I had the check in my hand. It was a small check. It would have been better if it was like the giant check. But I could have just held on to it and not handed it over if I wasn't happy with it. So
okay. Well, now we know for next year. Because they've already hit me up for next year, just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I'm sorry I missed the good times and Kyle's flaws of leadership, but it's okay. So next year it's Boston, I think, right?
Yep.
Pretty sure that's where we are. All right. Abstracts within like a month probably. So all right. Hopefully we break the 40 mark for BFR posters and talks.
Yeah.
Growing by leaps and bounds. All right, fellas. It's been real. We're going to have a lot more podcasts coming up. Some cool papers have been coming out. I think we've got guests scheduled, for the year or something Kyle was saying. So we're going to start churning and burning these things now. All righty. Peace out.
Peace out.
See you.
Thanks for listening to the Owens Recovery Science Podcast. Owens Recovery Science is a single source for PTs, OTs, ATCs, DCs, MDs, and other medical professionals seeking certification in personalized blood flow restriction rehabilitation training. Find them online at owensrecoveryscience.com.
One last thing before we get out of here. First, want to say sincere thank you for listening all the way through, but also wanted to remind you that this podcast should not be considered medical advice. It is strictly entertainment. It's a way for us to try to keep up with what is ongoing within the BFR world. If you require some sort of medical attention, medical advice, please seek that from a licensed individual within your state. Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.